James Gladstone was introduced today in Jacksonville, and let me tell you something. I'm impressed, but maybe not for the reason you'd think. We'll talk about it more here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Just make sure you tap into that location each and every day so you do not miss an episode. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $100, $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Shout out to the everydayers who join us here every single day. We appreciate you tuning in and tapping into the Locked On Jaguars podcast. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about James Gladstone, how very deliberate and intentional he was with his words. And I was shocked a little bit listening to him, and I'll tell you why. I'll save that for you. But we're going to start with me just letting you know that Shad nailed the GM hire. I think he's nailed everything since the day that he decided he was going to move on from Trent Baalke. I think it has been a really, really good last few weeks for Shad Khan in the coaching, hiring, staff, the move to make Tony Boselli EVP, as well as choosing James Gladstone and the entire process that got them to this point. Now, does that mean that this is going to work? And I have to say stuff like this because one of my close friends, he always challenges me a little bit. And he says, hey, man, make sure you don't sound, like too much sunshine and rainbows. I think today is the day for sunshine and rainbows, though. I think today is a really, really good day. There's a time for everything. And right now, the time is to point out the things that I believe the Jaguars have done extremely well here in the last couple of days or weeks. You can't just say days, weeks. The last few weeks, the Jaguars have done some very good things. But seeing five people, Shad, Tony, Khan, Tony Boselli, Mark Lamping, Liam Cohen, and James Gladstone all on the stage together, you really, really do believe now that the I wouldn't say the problems, but the goals and the direction of this team is really, really going to be, it's going to have a lot of monsters chasing it. A lot of guys working together. And I never felt that in the past. I kind of felt that everyone was in their own little corner doing their little job. And when things didn't go right, it always felt like, and it may not be true, but it just felt like what was going on in the past was everybody was saying, not on me. You remember Jalen in the locker room, Jalen Ramsey, when he said, I guarded my man. That's what it all felt like in the past. And I'm glad that those things now are going away. And now this team is moving in a totally different direction in terms of accountability. One of the things that Gladstone did say that I really, really held firm and held on to is when he said there's going to be disagreements, and that's good. And I almost passed out in my car because I actually left to go to the press conference, and then there was an accident right in front of me. By the time they got it cleaned up, I had wasted 20 minutes, and I arrived at the stadium about 10 minutes after the interview started, and I didn't want to bust in. So I listened to it in my car on the way home to come back and record. And by the way, I hope everybody's all right in that accident. I don't want to make light of that. But the one thing that I really, really liked about that statement is it's okay to disagree. We can agree to disagree, and we'll move on to something else. So he basically said if they have a disagreement on an evaluation of a player, they'll push that player aside, and then they'll just focus on it. Doesn't even matter if that guy ends up successful. It's not going to be one of those cases. It's not I told you so. All right, we're just going to move on, and we're going to go and find the guys that we are in alignment with, and we're going to bring those guys in. I absolutely love that. That means that we don't have to have groupthink, and that means that people aren't going to get upset And it means that folks aren't going to, get a wedgie just because somebody disagrees with their opinion on a player. You won't hear, I guarantee you won't hear, I've been doing this for a long time, longer than most of y'all. You don't know what you're talking about, that feeling. And those may not have been the exact words of anyone who was in the building before, but that's the sentiment, and those are the feelings that a lot of people got when you were dealing with certain people. That no, it doesn't go that way, right? So I'm open to the fresh ideas. I'm open to all of that stuff, but the main thing I'm open to is the alignment of the franchise, of not having an egomaniac, but having guys that know that they're good at their job. They know the direction that they're going. It's all in the same direction. They all speak the same language, and they're all going to work really, really, really hard in order to get this franchise to where it needs to be. And as James said, he's going to try his best to give the Jaguars fans a team that they can be proud of. And the fans have really, really supported this team for years and have not gotten a big return on it. It seems that Shad pushed every single button correctly once Trent Baalke was out of the facility. And I don't know if there's a correlation there, or if we even need to examine that and go back and forth over it. It's like yesterday, somebody was going back and forth with me over play calling, and I'm thinking, like, they said that Doug didn't fire press, and I'm thinking, what about Doug Peterson makes you think that had he fired press or called plays makes you think that it would have worked anyway? Nothing. Okay. And the reason why he didn't fire the dude was because the dude was a mini version of himself. I'm not even going back to all of that stuff, man. I just really want to move on and focus on the positivity that's to come. It does not mean, however, they're going to win every game. It doesn't mean that they're not going to have hard times. It doesn't mean that some picks will be, all of the draft picks are all of a sudden going to make it. It's not that. It's not the sunshine and the sunshine and rainbows from the effect of, okay, all the losing is over. No, there's still a lot of hard work to do. This is a violent sport. Guys get hurt. You can't control players' attitudes, and hope and sit that everything's going to go all right with those guys. You have to motivate those players and motivate those people for those guys to, I'm sorry, I was a little bit distracted, for those guys to be on the same page and be right about what is right for this franchise and what is best. So what we'll do is I'm going to take a little bit of a dive into James Gladstone and from hearing him talk for the absolute first time. And I'm going to tell you why I was shocked a little bit, but the shock eventually led to me having a total understanding as to why he was the Jaguar selection and why everyone is so excited about it. I'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. That's right. NBA is in full action, man. The tip-offs are going off right now, and it's just really, really getting started after the All-Star break, so there's no better place to get on that action than at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action, and if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. And also, this is very important, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Running it down here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. James Gladstone, I watched the video, listened to it, and then I watched it again when I stopped driving. And I was surprised. At first, I was expecting rock star very, very slick tongue, good with words, energetic. And that's not what I got. But what I did get ended up being better. I got substance. Very deliberate, very intentional with his words, not a fast talker, slow explanation, good communicator. And it made me think back to guys that I was stationed with in the military that were just like that. It's like it wasn't a whole bunch of word soup. It wasn't a bunch of the normal stuff that you normally hear from GMs when they get up to the podium. It wasn't like we're going to win. Let's win this press conference. And when I win the press conference, it wasn't anything that was going to blind you to the mission, right? It didn't. I kind of felt that way when Shad took over the team. It was just like, okay, good communicator, but I wasn't wild. Like the words didn't move me just for words' sake, if you will. But the measured approach, the intentional way that he goes about speaking and talking, where he makes everything crystal clear. You don't have to guess with James Gladstone what he's thinking. And if you're wondering what does that have to do with football, it has everything. Communication is so important. If you heard the Locked On Jaguars podcast in the past, I often talked about the messaging from the team, which led to a lot of us that are content creators or people who cover the team. It leads you to do a lot of speculation based on deductive reasoning. I don't think you're going to have to do that with James Gladstone. In fact, I'm pretty positive that whatever he says and whatever he is trying to convey is going to be the actual words that he uses, and you're not going to be confused about it. I really, really do love his approach to players. Just like when Liam Cohen says players over plays, it sounds to me like it's players over traits. It sounds to me like instead of criticizing a player, for instance, this past offseason in an unofficial sort of off the record way, Balky mentioned to me, and I know somebody who's standing right there. I don't want to mention their name. If they hear this podcast, they're going to say, yep, I can verify that. Balky mentioned to me that a player that he came from nothing, so he's a little rough around the edges. And it had nothing to do with our conversation. Nothing. Because I kind of turned my head and looked at him because he was actually talking to a kid that came from nothing and that was rough around the edges. And I look back at those types of moments and I'm thinking, one, it has nothing to do with the conversation, but two, I always like people that come from tough circumstances and get things done in a little bit of a different way. I look at it as a testimony or a testament to their will, their ability to focus on the mission, despite having all of these things. Right? I don't look at that as something like, okay, we gotta almost like you gotta clean them up a little bit, and it was just a joke to me, right? It sounds like when James Gladstone says stuff like this, we're gonna get people that are tangibly rich, like they have something to offer us, and we have something to offer them. We're gonna take them and we're gonna put them in here. It's almost like if you have what do they call them? They call them grow houses now, but a greenhouse. That's what it is. We are going to take this specific plant, not the one that fries you. Get just, I'm not talking about that. But we're going to put this in this green, and we're going to put it in an environment that is not just conducive to it growing, but we're going to put it in an environment that is, they won't have a choice but to grow. And we are going to grow from them being here because we want them to be unapologetically themselves. And that's not a quote, but it is the sentiment that I got from hearing him talk. And he mentioned about how Les Sneed, his mentor, the GM for the Rams, is unapologetically himself. And he wants people in the franchise to come in and be unapologetically themselves. Now, the vetting process for them is to pick the right person. That doesn't mean you're just going to go out here and get anything and tell them to come in here and be yourself, right? Now, what it means is you know exactly who you're looking for. You know exactly what type of people you want. We have talked so much about culture and all of that stuff. I know my man Sam gonna be like, nah, he ain't gonna work. There you go, bringing up the word culture again. But what it really is bringing the right people in, and he used the word that I use all the time, and that's ecosystem. Bringing the right people into the ecosystem. Your goals are set. You know what type of guys you want. Not only can they play, but they're the right type of people who will flourish into your system. And they're going to make your system better. They're going to make your entire atmosphere better, and they're going to thrive while they're in it. Like-minded people, alignment. And that is exactly what this franchise needs. There's a reason why there are some teams that are super, super consistent year in and year out, game in and game out. And it's because they have just that right there. Now, there are some people that love the Jimbo Fisher way of coaching, and I'll call it that, where I want everybody to be selfish. I'll throw a stake in the middle of the floor, and whoever wins it. That's the competition, and we're going to fight, and we're going to be honorary. I think that there's some good in that, but I don't think manufacturing stress on yourself is ever a good deal, and you can only go so far with it. You might look up and win a championship here or there, but you're not going to have that consistency from one game, one practice to the next. That's why the Jaguars, in my opinion, were losing games in different ways. So it was like the same way, but it was a different way. And what I mean by that is it's a different way they were losing the game, but they actually, if you look at it from a macro, they lost it the same way. The same way is by being different and losing. So they were consistent at being inconsistent, and therefore they got a different result. They got the same result every time, but they got to it in a different way. I just think it is so, so important to have alignment. Gone will be the days where they'll lose a whole bunch of games by one score. They're either going to win them or they're going to lose them, but they're not going to sit here and make you think that, okay, they're not that far away. They're not that far away. Just because they keep losing a bunch of close games. You can be miles away from something and lose a whole bunch of close games. And people think it's just, okay, we just need one more player, or we just need this guy, or we need just one guy just to be healthy. When really, it is not that simple. It is not that simple. And the way he spoke today, the intentional, like I said, I love the word deliberate and I love the word intentional when it comes to him. He didn't blow my socks off from the word suit. He blew my socks off by saying less and having it have more meaning. We'll discuss that and more and continue to talk about the alignment and why that word it was probably used today about 5 times by him and by Tony Boselli and everyone else. And we'll speak about Tony too, because I think Tony Boselli's role is becoming more and more clear. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Everybody was on that stage today and they had a chance to speak, including the owner, Shad Khan. Shad said it was a very, very competitive type of process that led to James Gladstone being the GM. He had a 4-hour in-person interview. Tony Boselli obviously was there, Mark Lamping, Tony Khan. And to go through that process and win that process, I'm pretty sure there were a lot of reasons why they chose him, but the one that I think, well, there are 2 things. One, they had chosen Liam to be the coach, and then they got a strong recommendation from Les Sneed, who every young kid in that business should want to work for a guy like Les Sneed because he didn't hold him back. He groomed him, and not in that way. Let me just say he raised him up through the business in a professional way. They had some success, and then he told him when he was ready. You didn't see the kid jump out the window. He had to get pushed out. And that's another thing about this situation that I really, really like. He probably didn't even know he was ready until Les says, you're ready. It's time. He says he loved being in the support position. When he talked about Les and his family, he almost cried. And when he mentioned his own family, he almost cried. And he thanked so many people for getting him to this point. That sounds like somebody that gets it, man. That sounds like a dude that's humble, but not humble to the point where he leaves any doubt about whether he believes he can get this job done. I think he can. And the word alignment is important in this situation because you saw so many people on that stage that'll have defined roles. And he talked about having disagreement and said that it was okay. And he also mentioned the fact that it's not about ego. It's about getting it right. And I wanted to, man, I was in the car celebrating as I heard those words come out of his mouth. Because that's not been the case. That has not been the case in the past. There was a sort of an old school way that the Jaguars were moving about their jobs. And now they have new energy. They have a new way. And that way is going to be inclusive of everybody doing it together. And all of the pieces that they have seem like they match up really, really well. And the mission matches up really, really well. And how they're going to go about their business and get to it, it matches up really, really well. I don't know if y'all have ever been a part of anything where everyone, while it's not groupthink, everyone is an individual, but from the standpoint of effort, trying, what the goals are, knowing, being goal oriented, having a way to communicate, I think it's perfect. I think it is absolutely perfect, and is what the Jaguars have been missing. It is what they have truly been looking for. I like the fact that there are more bodies involved. I like the fact that they're probably going to be there's a bigger coaching staff. He also mentioned, Gladstone mentioned, and this is typical in the way that it works. Usually when a coach takes over, they don't replace an entire scouting department before the draft. They let everybody work through and keep doing the job. Some of those dudes will probably be evaluated based on how they do it. They're probably going to make a whole bunch of changes to that after the draft. It doesn't do any good to do it right now because everybody is pretty much where they're supposed to be, and they know what the time frame is with evaluating people. The whole brass, they're all going up to the combine. They said that they'll be there later on this afternoon up in Indianapolis, and they're going to start getting to work. I love the way he said, game on. It's go time. It's time to get it done. I'm just happy, man. I'm happy for the fans. I'm happy for the organization. I'm happy for Shad Khan realizing that he needed to change things and to do things a certain way. I'm extremely happy with the coaching hires. Like I said, this does not mean that I believe that there won't be, some bumps in the road. There won't be some things to figure out. But I know that the people that are trying to figure out aren't going to be finger pointing, and they're going to get it. You have a better chance of it getting done. I think it was last week when I used this example. I remember when it looked like Jalen Ramsey was playing a different defense than the other 10 guys. And I remember saying, even if Jalen's right, he's wrong. Because even if whatever Todd Wash is calling isn't the right thing to do, having one guy doing one thing and 10 other guys doing something else is not the answer. Do the wrong thing. If all 11 of y'all are doing the wrong thing, all 11 of y'all are doing the wrong thing. But what will never, ever, ever, ever work if there's one guy doing one thing and everybody else is doing something else. That element, I think, from top to bottom is gone from this team. That element, I believe, from top to bottom is gone. It is sink or swim. They're either going to swim together or they're going to sink together, and they're all going to be there together. And that's the way that it has to go. There's no other way, in my opinion, to win in team sports other than that way. It's yet to be seen whether or not all of this stuff is going to work. I happen to think that this is a very, very good start for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was a little bit shocked that I wasn't blown away by his cadence, James Gladstone's cadence, and the way that he, the way so many fans have, in my opinion, they love to hear people win the press conference, right? So he won it, but he won it in a very, very different way. He won it by sticking to the roots of who he is. He won it by being very, very intentional and deliberate, answering questions in a way with clarity, with understanding. And the reason why I think that's so important is because I've talked to Tony Boselli a lot, and Tony's the exact same way. The couple of times I've had a chance to talk to Shad, and a couple of times I've had a chance to talk to Tony Khan, same way. Mark Lampin, same way. And when you hear Liam Cohen talk and discuss about the coaching staff and about how they want to be balanced on the field and say we need that same balance in our operations as an organization, it's about oneness, man. It's not about one person. It's not about somebody ducking responsibility. Moving forward, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars, believe it or not, this offseason, starting a few weeks ago, I think they really, really turned the corner. I think they really, really, really turned the corner as an organization. And y'all know I've been very, very critical of this team. They didn't do everything that I thought they should have done or wanted them to do, but they did the most important stuff. And that's why it's humbling for me to sit here and go, I'm going to give them a shot. I'm going to give them a good shot, and I'm going to give them a good shout out for what they've done, because I have been really, really critical, and I'm almost lost for words. How impressed I am, because I think this is a similar moment in this team's history. I really, really do. You can get all the moments you want Locked On NFL each and every day. My man Tyler Rowland wakes you up with NFL in the AM and hits you like a double shot of espresso, and then you can slide right back over with me in the barbershop, and we'll give it to you like you can't get it anywhere else, with the use of the local experts that know your teams just like, well, no one else does. On Locked On NFL, a double dose. Make sure you check it out wherever you listen or get your podcast. Good day, man. Good day to be a Jags fan, man. Y'all should be extremely happy and extremely excited about this team as they move forward. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.